look at, she's running commercials saying, I reduced utility bills. Anybody here had your utility bill reduced? Nobody did.
If Andy Biggs becomes governor, Arizona will be the first swing state with an election denier in charge. And the time to stop that is not 2028, it is right now.
Welcome back to Square Off. That is just a sample of the vitriol we can expect to hear over the next 100 days or so as Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs and Republican Congressman Andy Biggs battle to win the governor's race. What are they saying that might stick in voters' minds when they cast a ballot in November? The politics panel steps in with some answers on that and many other topics. Republican consultant Barrett Marson, CEO of Marson Media, and Stephen Sligocki, former chair of the Maricopa County Democratic Party. Welcome to you both. Good to see you.
Thank you for having us.
Let's start with CD1. It's a national story right now.
Sure.
Democrats nationally in an uproar over the party's support for a congressional candidate who lost, put hundreds of thousands of dollars behind Marlene Galan Woods for finishing second. Now there's talk of banning the party from doing these things, from getting involved. Where do you stand on that?
Sure. So let me just say, again, this was a small DC group that was not local. This was not the local groups. This was not the county party. This was not the state party. This was a Washington, D.C. group. When I was chair, it used to drive me nuts when people from outside would come in and tell us what to do. So I can understand that frustration here. But let's also not take away from the fact that Amish Shah ran a great campaign. He ran against 3 very good quality candidates, and he won. He won because he kept his head down, he knocked the doors, he talked to the voters. He's going to get the national support because this is a race that we need. So yes, we may have to answer for what happened nationally, but let's give credit to Amish Shah for the great race that he ran.
And so you had Mark Kelly, Democratic Senator Mark Kelly, getting in the last week and endorsing Marlene Galan Woods.
Right, and that made no difference because Democrats had already voted. Where was he, 4 weeks ago before early ballots went out? I think that was a massive mistake. If he was going to jump in, he should have jumped in much earlier. It was way too late to save because most Democrats, especially in that district, had voted early. Mitch McConnell was very famous for saying, candidate quality matters, and sometimes, his group would play in primaries. And so I understand that concept. I just don't see a huge difference between Woods and Shah. Shah is not a horrible candidate. You may not have liked him, and he did well. Didn't win, obviously, 2 years ago. But he's not a flawed candidate. And so I didn't understand why why Washington Democrats entered that race so much on Woods' side.
How concerned are you that you're going to hear Republican Jay Feely just throwing all this in Shah's face?
They probably will, but we know that, Shah has a record of results at the state capitol. When Dems had a choice, we chose someone with proven leadership skills at the state capitol. Republicans had a choice, and they chose someone with no qualifications, no experience at all, except for the endorsement of Donald Trump. And I think we're going to continue to hit on that as we win this seat. The people are united around Amish Shah. So yes, we had a difficult primary, but we are going to support him as our nominee.
One of the things that Washington Democrats were not happy with 2 years ago is Amish Shah won't go negative. I believe it's a religious thing for him. You know what? I like that. He is running on his record, and he'll draw the contrast, but he won't go negative. And I think he probably won't bring up how many games Jay Feely lost for the Cardinals. I just don't I appreciate that in this day and age. I don't know if he can win, but I do appreciate that.
That's interesting because Jay Feely's positioning himself as kind of a lower-key Trump-endorsed candidate. We'll see how that
in that district. In that district.
Big swing district, a lot at stake. It will just help decide which party controls the U.S. House.
I would think that not a lot of words starting with Trump will come out of his mouth.
But Dems are fired up. We are going to support Shah.
Oh, well, that's good to hear.
Absolutely. He's gonna do great. He's a hard worker.
Let's go over to the Republican primaries, sponsored by Turning Point USA this year, it seems. Turning Point candidates racked up several wins, but the Trump-allied activists may have blown up Republican control of the Arizona Corporation Commission. They took out the chair.
Well, first of all, control won't change. There are only 2 seats, so at minimum, even if both Democrats win. But I understand. This is
a conservative chair, and they said, you're out of here.
Right. This primary is the Turning Point primary. Turning Point got, for the most part, its candidates, especially on the statewide ballot. they own this election now. And they're going to have to work hard to get all, up and down the ticket, and especially someone like Ralph Heap across the finish line.
And that Ralph Heap was their candidate, the one they wanted instead of Nick Myers.
So Kevin Thompson got the most amount of votes, and Nick Myers came in about 15,000 votes under Heap. But,
and as I remind folks, these are the folks who set your electric rates, natural gas rates,
Look,
water rates in many
your
cases.
viewers are the most educated viewers in politics. There's no doubt about that. But you know what? Out in the real world, nobody knows what the Corporation Commission is. They don't know what it does. So that's why you got 5 Republicans. This is a Republican state. Now, if the Democrats can talk about affordability, and they may be able to capture 2 seats. I don't think it's going to be a split ticket. I think people are going to either vote Republican or vote Democrat.
And if I can add here, it is our job over the next 100 days to educate what the Corporation Commission does. We have 2 great candidates in Jonathan Hill and Clara Pratt. We have an opportunity now with Turning Point taking over, because it's all about dear leader, and if you're not fully on board with Turning Point, it's not about helping the ratepayers of Arizona utility bills, and that's what the Dems are going to do, and that's why we have an opportunity this fall that we may not have had before. And I think this is going to be an underrated race that people should pay attention to.
All right, let's move on to the governor's race. You heard those sound bites from Congressman Andy Biggs, ironically enough, blaming Katie Hobbs for higher utility rates that are set by the Republican-controlled Corporation Commission. That'll play out. But you heard those sound bites, both of them going negative.
Yep.
What do you think that Biggs can say that will stick in voters' minds when they cast the ballot in November?
I do believe some of the corruption that Katie Hobbs has been accused of. She's literally still under investigation by the Attorney General. You've asked her about, will she sit for an interview? She has yet to decide that, or we have not heard that anyway. So I think that is going to be something big. The affordability issue, though, is what is going to make or break this election for both parties. And it's going to be up to Biggs, who, is going to have to thread a needle between saying prices are too high, but not piss off Trump.
Yeah.
What can Katie Hobbs say that will stick?
Donald Trump is deeply unpopular in Arizona. I think that's important to note, that he is underwater in every poll. Andy Biggs has decades of experience of right-wing leadership that we're going to continue to hit him on. He has to answer for his role in January 6th. He has to answer for why he, asked for a pardon, his support of the tariffs, why he's made things less affordable for everyday Arizonans. These are all things that we're going to continue to hit him on. Katie Hobbs has a record of results, and that's why she has not lost an election, and she is going to do a great job reaching out to the voters of Arizona this fall.
Katie Hobbs has very few results. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Got to end it there.
Okay, thank you. Because we could talk forever about the lack of results.
We could talk forever about lots of stuff.
We'll see you in 100 days.
Barrett Marson, Stephen Slagaki, thanks so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you.
And that's our show for this week. Thanks very much to all of our guests. Thank you so much for joining us. See you back here next weekend for another round of Square Off.